created my own little algorithms to do one thing or another, like disease states, a mortality algorithm. And
I think you will have a whole levels of robotics, that humanoid robots or non-humanoid robots, whatever the case is.
But the one that I really gravitated towards was Alteryx. Low code, no code, business intelligence stuff, data science, machine learning, things like that.
Audio, the text, and then there's big metaverse bug. Everybody knows the metaverse.
Another week of AI.
Oh, another exciting week of AI.
Hey, it's nothing like AI. So I'm here for it. So let's get started. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad that you're here today. We got a great session planned for everybody, and we hope that you would drop your questions in the chat.
Yeah, please do, because as you're watching it, we want you to ask questions and get curious, and curious only comes from confusion. So I think we have plenty of confusion going on. I think one of the things that previous episodes we have done where we talk, through like, I guess what's happening in AI and what are some of the social impact, people impact, business impact that AI brings. And of course, there's a whole lot of infrastructure behind it. And we've always been approached by people asking about, hey, if I want to do this, what do I need to know? If I want to do that, what do I need to know? And over time, it becomes very simple to say, you only need to know a few things, actually, right? Which is, if you know those few things, you can ask good questions. And if you can ask good questions, you can see through, right? And then be able to audit, right? Have that clarity and have that confidence to make a decision on AI or whatever that is you're trying to make a decision on. Same principle, right? Applies everywhere. So with AI, it's hardware, software, and data, right? Tell me about the data, tell me about the software, tell me about the hardware. If you have two of those out of three, maybe I'm not the right person to talk to because I sometimes need all three of them, right? So there's a whole lot of ways to peel the onions, but of course, like I said, there's only a few things that are basic everybody needs to know. And I'm so glad that we have somebody that's educator in nature, educator in training, educator by profession, like Bobby. And just to testify the fact that, you put that education thing on, teaching bug in my head, because, you take pride in teaching and you have taught so many students. And I saw your style and the way you teach and learned a lot from it. So now it's time to do more. How do we get more people like the way you did with me? How do we teach more people to say, now you teach, right? Train the teachers.
Well, it really is the old adage of each one teach one. And I'm really just happy to know that as a community, we continue to grow. What we're doing here is to take some of the technical pieces out of it, because at the end of the day, people don't have to be an AI genius to use the tools, right? It is just built into so many things we do nowadays. So the question is, how can I do what I do better? Or how can I make my job faster, easier, or more reliable? And in that space, a lot of fears out there thinking that I'll be replaced. When the truth is, the person who's going to be replaced is the person who doesn't add value to the company and doesn't know how to use the latest tools. I happened to years ago work with a lady that she has a typewriter and she still used the typewriter when everybody else moved to the computer. So fast forward a few more years, recently there was a lady on the team, really great person, but she had a typewriter, no joke. And literally she would ask how to do certain things. Well, I don't want it on the computer. Can I get it on the typewriter? And I thought, hmm.
Mm.
Mm. Like, first off, I'm like, where'd you find ribbon for that thing? Right. And then,
are we still buying that?
right. Like, where did you find ribbon? And then the other piece is, does this person add value to her boss? in today's world where everything is digital and in an email, she still wants stuff sent, even if it's in an email, so she can print it out and get a hard signature. And she's the only one in the whole organization doing that. What can I say? Right? You don't want to be the person. Let go of your typewriter. So, in other words, learn AI because it's just part of how we do business now. Know what it can do, what it can't do, and what it can't do better than you. And the one thing it probably can't do better than you is understand your business. So leverage that. Make it work for you. Make it make sense.
Make it make sense. But one of the things that I'm seeing the full cycle is coming to fruition here is that in typewriters you had specific amount of features. So maybe you can take a white sheet of paper and list 50 features that comes with the typewriter.
Mhm.
And if you take the same sheet of paper and say, now let's write it for a computer, amount of features that a computer has.
Mhm.
10, 20 years ago, or even today, I think today is just ridiculous amount of features, but that one single sheet of paper will not be able to fit all the features in it. So
No.
it's that user experience that kind of loops around and say, I don't need all the features, but you're charging me for all the features.
Right.
So the package I'm buying here it's this laptop. This laptop has all these things in it. I barely even scratch the surface of what I actually use, right?
Right.
So the user experience, that user interface has all sorts of possibility and potential. So even if you're trying to teach somebody computers, they're like, I click here and I go here and my job is done, right?
Mhm.
Three things I need. Don't give me all the features. So I
Right.
think with what's happening today, where we call it AI, but it's just user interface, the way it's changing, the way we're interacting with the system, it's changing dramatically. And I think it will reduce the features that each individual will need, right?
Mhm.
So if it's not available, it's not sitting on your face and you're like, I have all these buttons here, what's going on? You
Right.
don't need a button because those buttons are not made for you. It's just made
Right.
for average everybody. Somebody might use it, but not 100% of everybody will use it.
Right.
So that user interface and user experience is changing, and we really have to be ahead of the curve all the time, because some of the features that we're used to, it's going to cost too much money because it's not average anymore. You cannot just distribute out that many features to everybody. They will start selecting it. They will start removing it. So twofold here, the user experience that comes to, you only get the features you need, but if you don't know how to find that feature in coming days, because you've been using it for the last 30 days, 30 years, or whatever the case is,
Mhm.
all of a sudden you don't know how to find that feature that you are so accustomed to for however many years, right?
Mhm.
So this, the full cycle that goes around is kind of coming back around, and we really need to figure out what feature each individual needs, personalize it, deliver it to them, and then teach that individual where to find it, or if they want to build it. And
Right.
that is the power where things are coming together in computer stack, is that now you're able to build those features that used to come with a package in the software. One day you're thinking, macros, that would be a great thing to have in my sheet.
Mhm.
Well, why macro? Just ask ChatGPT, type that in,
Mhm.
like 10 fingers, have ChatGPT do the macro for you. And you wouldn't
Right.
even know what a macro is 50 years from now, right?
Right.
So I'm more energized by people's need and their questions around that need. And
Mhm.
that's what's energetic, because I think one of the things that you've always brought up is that if you're educating, you want people to leave with more questions than they came in with, right?
Mhm.
Because now they have a mindset, a framework in their head that says, if I ask this question, not only can I speak that question, but as I speak it, I know what to ask next, right?
Right.
Because I'm
Right.
not asking questions because I don't know. I'm asking questions because I'm trying to verify, right?
Right.
So, Bobby Ray is a subject matter expert, but Bobby Ray can fool me any day of the week.
Right.
As long as I know
Mhm.
how to ask that next question, I have a clarity in my question. I have some confidence in my question.
Right.
I don't have to be a subject matter expert, but I can
Right.
ask that question with a lot of confidence in it. And is that going to happen with AI, where the subject matter experts of AI will take advantage of other people?
Well, in any business, you always have your snake oil salesman. That's just what it is. It doesn't matter, right?
Bobby,
But
tell me it's not going to happen. That's the world
or
we live
or that it hasn't already happened, right? So
in.
just right now, using AI to automate scams, et cetera, et cetera. But what you as an individual know is the thing that you do, your field of study, your area of profession. You know your stuff and what it is that you do. So really think about making my job better. How do I do that? And focus on the result, not on the how. The AI is going to help you with the how. You can find tools and people and other resources to help you with the how.
Yeah,
But what you need to be able to articulate is the what. What is it that I want? What does it look like?
yeah,
Right. So when you talk about interfaces and a bunch of buttons, nobody cares about that. The
yeah,
result is what people are concerned about. What result do you want?
yeah,
And focus on that and what goes into that result, right? What's the business processes and practices? What is the math? What is the pros that go into whatever it is that you would like out,
yeah,
and understanding that piece. If you understand what you would like to see and are able to articulate it, not scared to just experiment, you can get to where you want to be.
yeah.
And because of the tools that are available with natural language, it's easier than ever. So you see all of these things on TV, and every other week someone talks about the new. There's a new version of this, a new version of that. You're not concerned about the new your version of whichever model. You're concerned about what am I doing today and how do I do it well. So don't freak out every time someone has a new release of something. Usually what they're talking about is something that doesn't affect you anyway. So the things is what things can help me do my job better.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that makes you do your job better is people that supports you and motivates you, encourages you to do your job, and that's grace.
That's great.
You do it in the team, right? You got somebody like Grace that is just full of support in every endeavor that somebody gets into. So I want to introduce Grace, but I tell all my guests, if you do a poor job of like not introducing yourself with the most bragging rights and all the brags that you bring to the table, I'm going to brag on your behalf. So go ahead and brag what you can. But Grace, how are you, my friend?
Good to
And
see you,
I'm
Grace.
so excited to see you.
It's so nice to be with you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. And I was nodding here, and then until you said Grace, I was like, oh.
I'm talking about you. Yeah, that's you.
Yeah, my name is Tika Tesfaye. A lot of you know me as Grace here on LinkedIn, and background is talent acquisition. And now I am passionate to be as great as Asif and Bobby in the world of AI, and so I love listening and learning and kind of building on that and creating platforms for leaders to also have the opportunity to be in rooms to
Yeah.
talk and conversate.
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to talk specifically what Grace is talking about with platform or in a place where people can get the clarity and the confidence to make that decision is in a dinner table, right?
Mhm.
No sugarcoating it. Literally, come and have a dinner with us, right? We are a bunch of subject matter experts that are just sitting down and helping the leaders and the next generation of leaders how to communicate, how to question, how to have that clarity in communication and confidence in the follow up, right? So that piece that Grace has been superb at, because like she's really doing lots of things behind the scene to make this dinner happen, right?
Mhm.
That is a rare talent that I don't have, and thank goodness Grace does. So and like I said, I think we're talking to the right people, right? And we always have to give them the right message. And when we know the person, we have to tailor our messages for them. And in dinner table, that's all possible because everybody knows everybody in a dinner table. You're only arms reach away. If I get to know you, I can tailor the message for you, right?
Mhm.
So, Grace, I have a few things that I want to add on top of what you said about yourself, right? I mean, one of the things that not a lot of people will find out unless Grace tells them is that she actually was in IT space doing sales.
Oh, you remember? I'm shocked you
Mm,
remember.
mm. So Grace will always say, "Oh, I don't know much about tech." She used to break hardwares down just to learn every single component inside of a device. So she will always say, "Oh, I don't know." I'm like, "Yeah, I think you know more about IT than just."
Mhm.
Yeah. Let me tell you something that I have learned just recently. I love the aspect of what people can do with the tech, especially now in the AI space, more than knowing how to do it. Like, I don't want to know how to build AI or whatever. I find it very fascinating and
Mhm.
very impressive,
Right.
especially, the people who know how to do it. But I am really fascinated by understanding how people in different rooms are using AI.
Mm.
And I think, and it took me a long time, to be very honest with you, to identify where am I here. Like, I come from this area, and of like tech sales, talent acquisition, tech recruiting for the most part, as well as now doing what I'm doing with Table Talks, as
Mhm.
Asif. And it's very natural to understand, what are people doing,
That's
and
right.
how are they implementing it, and what is at the end of the day, I feel like it's people who are going to use it. It's not going to use us. I know a lot of people may watch a lot of
Mhm.
movies.
Movies. Right.
At least not now, no time soon.
Yeah.
And I think I'm very fascinated by the things that we can do with.
Mhm.
I gotta crack this joke, but I gotta crack this joke about AI using people or AI taking over. My response always is like, "Have you seen how the internet works?" And the way it works is like the worst highway you ever been in.
Mhm.
You're just wondering why does it work? Why
Right.
hasn't it fallen apart yet? This is BGPs, AGPs out on the edge are just not keeping up with the demand, but they're still there working because some
Right.
genius made them, and those geniuses are aging, they're moving, and if we don't have follow-up genius to bring them, whatever that is, AI takes over or not, things are not going to work.
Mhm.
AI doesn't have to take over anything. We just have to start not fixing the things that we're supposed to fix.
Right.
Like
Right.
AI is
Well,
not the big problem. It's the infrastructure that's falling apart. It's the
right.
big problem.
Well, infrastructure and people is always the bad driver, right? The bad driver who's also angry. You got the nerve to be angry? Like, really? So, and that's kind of the way life goes is not understanding all the dynamics that play into something. So, for example, is in Grace's lane and that talent acquisition. I remember an incident where I had a project and I was doing it. We're for the Chinese government. The guy I had leading it finished it. It was beautiful work, and we had to send it over to the State Department to have it translated. And they were saying they were backlogged. I said, "Man, they're backlogged." He said, "No problem." He had already done it in both dialects of Chinese. Now the guy from the South, strong Southern accent, right? My name is Bob. This is my other brother Bob. Kind of accent. It was that strong, but both of his dialects were perfect when he would speak them, and he could write, you know, without error. When we sent it to State Department, uh, we thought we was helping them with a leg up. State Department sent it back and said no correction needed. From a talent acquisition point of view, I was like, why didn't I know this? Why did I not know
Wow.
how
Yeah.
many languages he spoke and
Right.
to what level, and
Right.
that he had already incorporated in it, because you can't look at anyone and think you know what their talents, skills, and abilities are. You would be wrong more often than not, especially as you move into corporate space. People come from all kind of places, so they look like what they look like, they sound like what they sound like, right? But had we had better technology integrated into our just whole onboarding and talent acquisition,
Mm.
it should have popped up. It would have helped me immensely.
Yeah.
So
Why
Yes.
yeah.
wasn't that listed on your profile? You know?
I love that example. I love that example. In very common areas, it's like cab drivers or anything like that, where we talk to folks and we sometimes even don't have respect for their profession, as they, we think we are above them, but really they may already have a PhD that you don't know about, right?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
That's
mhm,
what's
Exactly.
happening a lot, right?
yeah.
That's what's happening a lot right now. And I gotta admire the fact that when somebody doesn't know something, they can go out and ask and receive that knowledge, right? But I'm always fearful that I'm not asking that room full of people what it is that you guys don't know, right?
Hmm.
What it is that I can add. Where's the gap in your understanding? So when I meet people, like, sometimes you're in the room and you're just doing your job because that's what they told you to do, is go in that room and say this. But you're not asking questions. You're not really doing a Q&A session. You're just more like a TED talk, like a brief in a lecture. You move on. Um, my regret all the time after doing that is like thinking, what did I say and what was misconstrued or misunderstood by somebody, and they never clarified that with me,
Hmm.
right? I'll give you one example that I can probably say that makes sense to me even to this day, is that I was next to a shop floor where the manufacturing machines are, right? So Microsoft, Amazon presented their stuff. So I went before Microsoft to talk about AI. So when Microsoft comes in, they're talking to the audience that knows a little bit about AI because they're about to drop some heavy AI in front of them. They're like, whatever used to take you 6 months is going to take you 6 minutes now. Are you ready for this? So here you go. Here's some AI information first. Then we'll present that tool. So I'm right next to the shop floor presenting this to a very small group of people, right? A lot of business leaders. And I presented my information. Microsoft, when the session ended, I went around the room. I said, hey, what'd you guys think? Because, these are military guys, my people, kind of like asking them, hey, what'd you guys think? So they all were being very honest. One guy in my age range said, I understood what you're saying, but somebody came and asked me about machine learning,
Hmm.
because he correlated that machine on the shop floor is going to start learning things and is going to become smarter and intelligent. Because I kept using the word machine learning, thinking that everybody knows the word machine learning and what that means.
Hmm.
My fault, right? But then again, I took that because I'm thinking that's my audience. They're going to know what machine learning is because that's a heavy component inside of AI. So I could have called it AI. I would have been just fine. But it probably generated some curiosity in somebody. But for some individuals, I never drew that line where they're thinking literally that machine on the shop floor is what I'm talking about as far as what machine is learning, right? So education, it doesn't come easily to everybody, but when it does, it's like, you got to be responsible one and educate properly, right? You
Hmm.
can't leave people half baked.
Right. Right.
Not the other kind of half baked, but
Well,
you know my point.
well, that's true. The thing is begin with the end in mind, and also when you're speaking to a group, don't pigeonhole the group. So I get it why you would think that. I'm talking and I'm being followed by Microsoft, but the truth of the matter is, oftentimes the people in the room, they're not tech nerds, they're money folks. I'm here at this Microsoft thing because I want to know how it can make me money. They could care less about what's going on in the background of any of the Microsoft tools. Years ago, I started out, where everybody does on the help desk, working for one of the big companies. And I'm talking in consumer, was where you start and then you move up to commercial. And I would tell the lady, okay, please open windows. And then she'd say, hold on. And then she'd come back and she'd say, okay. And she was really opening and closing her window in her house, like for real. And that's not on her. That was on me because I kept hearing, what's that sound? She was opening and closing windows. And that's when I learned right away that you have to, I'm there for the customer. That was my failure, not hers, right? So in that space, always keep in mind the reason why you're there is to really communicate and to communicate to the broadest possible group of people, and not to be afraid to ask the questions in advance so you know who you're dealing with. The work that Grace is doing to me is magnificent because that's what we've been missing, especially post-COVID. People think we could do everything over the computer, right? But you don't get a chance outside of that time that's allotted. The system is going to tell you have a 30-minute meeting, and at 2 minutes to 30 minutes, it's going to say you have 2 minutes remaining. You get none of the nuance, none of the things that you would learn about your peers and coworkers and collaborators. You don't have that opportunity, and we really need to get to it because we're missing so much.
That's right. That's right.
That is such an amazing example that you gave. You know, that reminds me of the age of like when cloud came to the world. And everybody started looking into the skies. But yeah, you know, I think one thing that I also recently learned in line with what you were saying is that we assume because we are around the world of tech and around the world of like AI and so on, that everybody around us knows because we hear it so much. We are exposed to it so much, right? So we have this assumption that other people know as well. And recently I have been in rooms where you cannot even start with the word or the abbreviation AI. You're losing them there. And then, you know, ChatGPT or whatever, you know, you lose them. So it's like you have to really kind of help yourself, like remember, like how do I explain this to somebody? Because I don't know how to break it down to somebody, to explain it to somebody. And I was in that position because I know what I would know, but I was having difficulties. I was caught off guard, right? To explain that to somebody who didn't have any clue about it at all. And I found that this would have been like such a great tool for them to use, and would had really relieved them of so much time and, you know, pressure and all that stuff, and give them opportunity to do more, right? And then think there are a few things like people like we assume, but also like you mentioned, like people who have maybe the highest degree in like finance or, you know, other skill sets, right? We assume because they are educated, they should know that as well. And I don't know why I just did that, but you know, we all have our own paths that we put more time into learning, right? And others, you know, have other interests. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is age. We assume all young people know.
Oh, good one.
I recently, very recently, just had a couple of young people, college students, that were not very exposed to AI. They kind of know, but like, you know, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
You know? So because the interest is in something different. The interest is not in tech. And they think that is tech. They don't see what it can do for them, how they can use it, which I find very fascinating. Is again, like to really kind of see how can people use it? What is the areas, you know? And then I can ask you guys to come in and help me.
That age part of it, it's a good one. So let me briefly mention this because when I say a few words, like, you know, people start having the image association with it, right? So I use this terminology frequently to talk to the leadership. It's like, you know, there's digital migrants, digital immigrants, digital natives, and then the digital refugees. What they go right for, which is very natural, is that most digital refugees are people of certain age, which is like, you know, 50 or over. And then most likely the digital native is somebody who was born after 2000 with the digital devices in their hands. And then, of course, the digital immigrants is like people like us, right? We started off really not doing anything on keyboard. All of a sudden, one day we see keyboard, now we're using keyboard, right? So that's the digital immigrants. We immigrated into this digital space. And we don't necessarily live in it 24 hours a day. But now I want you to visualize something here when it comes to age. So does that mean digital natives are all around the globe? Right? So digital natives are maybe a patch of communities that you can say, if I map it out, it's not going to turn blue or red. It's going to have a lot of gray spot that I don't even know. I don't even have that information about. Is there digital natives living there? Do they actually have devices on their hands that they're using? They're not, right? So, and then same goes for the digital refugees. If somebody's very specific age and now they're looking for jobs and now they're moving into the space where they have to earn income, are they digital what? Refugees, because they have no idea how to use digital anything other than what's in front of them at wherever they're working, right?
Right.
They're not exposed to the digital technologies that me and you're exposed to throughout wake cycle, right? So those digital migrants, the digital refugees are not necessarily elderlies who's getting spammed or having somebody buying them gift cards or whatever the case is. You can look at it from the other side as well, right? There's digital refugees are coming to the other side that we're not calculating yet, because no way we can even find out who has what device and they don't.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that's very true. I agree. To understand what the layout looks like or the layout of the land, and to make sure that you deliver the right message to the right place, right? There's nothing like delivering a beautiful message, and folks are looking at you and their eyes have just glassed over and they're like, no.
Yeah.
Right? So they'll be polite and clap at the end depending upon where you are,
Yeah.
but you've wasted their time, you wasted your time, right? And for all of us in our workspaces, is time is what? Time is money, and you don't want to be the person that has wasted the company's money. There's been a lot of great ideas. The consulting landscape, someone recently was talking about, consulting companies, and I said, well, I remember when there were a lot more, but you can only sell so much of that snake oil. So they had to consolidate to keep people from getting a lot of different choices, right? And you would jump from company to company. And bottom line is, consultants often would come in and not really pay attention to what the customer need was. I'm a consultant that sells X, and everything I'm going to tell you is how X can change your life, but I don't even need X. Right? Like I don't even need that. So understanding your customer base, understanding the audience that you're talking to, and then being able to communicate effectively to them in a language that they understand. That doesn't mean condescending, but it does mean using the right lexicons for whatever it is that they do. Every industry has its own niche. You can't even just say, for example, is someone says, I have a degree in mathematics. You think you know what that means. Well, working at a university, there are so many different types of mathematics, and each one of those maths has their own rules, and some of them are not even some of the math isn't even concerned about the answer. It's concerned about the how you get to the answer. So what if I can put in some variables and come out with an answer? They're not impressed. Can you show me how you got there, right? So I don't know if any of you saw that movie Hidden Figures,
Yes.
where they had to bring them back down, right? Bring them from out of orbit. And they were thinking, what kind of math, right? Because there's different types of math. And she said, Euler's method. Well, I remember Euler's method. I didn't like it. It was long and cumbersome, but it worked.
Yeah.
No other kind of math worked. So don't think you understand someone without really asking the questions. A lot of times people go in and we feel like we got to give a TED talk, right? Look how smart I am,
Yeah.
right? But that doesn't help the customer. If you're not speaking at a TED talk or leading a big, kicking off a big kind of workshop situation, you should really be in listening mode more than you are in talking mode.
Yeah.
Asking the right questions and then listening, and then asking clarifying questions,
That's right.
right? So if you're going to help, you can't help if you don't know what it is you're trying to help with. And that's the same thing in this AI field is if you're looking for a solution, have your questions written down and don't pay attention to anyone who isn't listening to you. You know, I went to the doctor and I was serious. I told him, I said, well, my knee hurt, my back hurt. He's like, I only get 15 minutes with you. You get one problem. I had to find me a new doctor. So don't be that doctor, right? No.
Is that why people just walk in and say my body hurts, so they don't have to
Yes.
worry about multiple problems?
They're allowed, they have max of 15 minutes per patient, and all that time don't mean sitting with you. That counts when the lady comes in and does your blood pressure, your temperature. And at 15 minutes, that you got to be out of there, right? That's that business model for some places. I ain't gonna say no names because we'll get sued. But for some places, that's what I did not know until that moment, that my need did not fit into what that care provider was offering, right? So then I said, okay, I need a different care provider that operates a little differently. So
Well, you actually need a care provider, but that doctor might not be a care provider. He's just a guy in a gown. There's no care or providing. Seems like it, right? There's no care or providing.
but that's that business model, right? It's not, I can't
Disable
even
this
say it
one.
was him personally. That's the business model of that, these mega systems. That's the thing. So when we go in and we're trying to help people understand, you can't help if you're not listening, if you're not trying to discover where they're at, right? So I love it from basically from end to end. So you got Grace on one end on the intake, because it's all about the intake, getting the right talent in the right places, right? And then you got you on the other end to make sure that whatever the outcome is, whether it's a program, a product, design, is what the customer intended, right? Because if you're wrong on the beginning and you're wrong on the end, everything in the middle is going to be messed up. That's kind of
That's
the
right.
way life works.
Gotta cycle back. You gotta go back, find the right talent.
Find the right talent. Yeah, oh my gosh. And there's nothing like being, whenever I go into an organization and there's, I'm working as a new leader in the organization and there's a lot of chaos and things don't operate well. I understand that the individuals, you give performance evaluations, they are part of the process, but I understood that we probably got the wrong person in the beginning. Somebody did you a favor, or they pulled you from another organization or another team and tried to make a square hole fit in the round, square peg fit in the round hole. So yeah.
But this goes back to what you said, and if you ask like the right questions, as you were mentioning earlier, to have that tool or the questionnaire that allows you to see what else outside of what we are looking to, from them, what can they provide the company as a whole person, right? So if you had that data, if you had that information, you could shift that person into areas that they may be better fit for, and they can support the company better.
The whole the need for jobs and paying the bills and all that, which is probably in everybody's mind, but I guess there's some priorities that we have. That's one step that's met. Then we're like, okay, let's do the right thing now, right? Once the priority is met, then we can say like, all right, maybe we shouldn't do it that way anymore. I find myself always engaging in a conversation where I have to talk about AI. I have to say something about AI. People are asking like, okay, Steve, you said you're a subject matter expert. Okay, tell me something, right? And then I say something very vague, and then I don't know where it landed, because the conversation really doesn't end up in somewhere where we're more in like a lengthier conversation, right? Because some conversations are just not that lengthy. So I find myself to say like, okay, what can I do to improve that, right? What are the things that I can do to improve the chances of people, when they hear that, they say like, oh, wait a second, this one needs to be a lengthier conversation because Asif said something that it fit my needs, right? So me and Masako, of course, we all know Masako here. Me and Masako, we started talking about, engaging the parents, because the parents have a need to see what their children are going through with internet, and then internet, now that it has AI, how does that change the landscape of keeping children secure in the internet space? We talked about just the parents themselves. What do they need to know when they have a busy life to learn about AI, right? So I think it was a good mixture of people caring about other people, right? I really do care about people. So does Masako, and we want to be able to say, we know there's many ways you can learn about AI, but let us also give you another non-traditional option, right? At this day and age, I call YouTube a traditional learning platform, literally traditional, because you can go on YouTube as long as you know what to type in, you will learn so much, right? Like non-traditional is what we used to call YouTube, or MOOCs, the online courses and things of the nature, is what we used to call non-traditional. Now, well, we have your traditional, and these are also traditional now, right? People are learning in these places, but if you do the calculation, all of a sudden you're looking at like, wait a second, that is not 8 billion people. That's not even 5% of the United States, because people that are getting education and technology are not that big, actually. They're not that big. It's kind of like going to the doctors. Well, the doctors need to know everything about doctors, what doctors need to know. They don't need to know what I know about IT, right? So I think we talked about this earlier, maybe off camera, is that there are a small number of people that can educate, so we must educate. And there's a very small number of people that can do IT education, right? Because we can break it down from our experience, right? We've been through so many processes. We've seen so many failures. We've seen some things that are successful deployment, but later on is not so successful because that becomes legacy and somebody has to replace it, right? It's a very slow process now. Why wasn't it so successful? Nothing about that was successful, right? So pointing out that fact that there's a huge population of people, but we want to give them a non-traditional way, a personal catered understanding of artificial intelligence, of the IT system, the way the world is, the way the world will be in the future, right? Impact of AI, not an impact of AI. Let's distinguish that, right? So like I said, kind of when me and Masako, we talked about this, we talked about with the parents, then we realized, no, we really need to expand that labeling beyond parents, because there are a lot of people that will lead the next generation of people that are employed into a world where the people are employed because AI and those sort of things are really prominent, like how internet is right now, right? Like if the internet goes down, you might as well have the electricity shut down because nobody's using. I'm just joking, but you get my point. Like it's that part of our life. Like internet goes down, it's like, what are we going to do with electricity? What's the point of that, right? So AI is going to be becoming that powerful because that's what internet is enabling, is for the AI to reach in many corners and let these AIs do all sorts of things that we don't do right now and we will in the future. So these leaders are part of that non-tech sort of leaders, right? They can lead very well. Like a doctor can do patient diagnosis very well. These leaders can lead very well. If we can empower them in a personalized way that they don't have to spend years and years in traditional schooling, but rather do it in a way that is like, if I can just continuously learn this and learn it from my personal perspective. I just want to give you an example of, like, say, somebody who works for Boeing, right? Everything in Boeing is not a process that is similar to what happens in, give me a factory, chocolate factory. Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, right? Process, everybody has a process, but it's not the same process. And so their leadership is also different, right? How they approach people, how they approach safety in Willy Wonka's factory, and how they approach safety in Boeing. We have to talk to the leaders specifically on that measure, because like I said, if you do traditional learning, you will learn because, you have to go through certain steps. But once you do traditional learning, you're not thinking about going back to traditional learning every year. But AI is not something that you can go to learn and go learn it in school and then come out and say, now I know everything about AI. That just isn't possible. right? Because AI is a lot of these hidden side of things that we really have to dig through and understand it for our personal needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that patient feels like their need has been met
Right.
by the subject matter experts. So these leaders and the parents with children, of course, and then the people that are leading the next generation of people into employment, right? We really have to personalize AI for ourselves, so that way when we are interacting with somebody else, which I call teach the teacher, right? I'm teaching a teacher how to teach their people, right? Teach the people based on their personal needs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree. When you're aligning the people, processes, and tools,
Yeah.
you have to be aware that all three of those dynamics change, right? By that definition, dynamic, right? Which means with the tools, that's kind of obvious. Technology changes or best practices changes.
That's right.
But with the process, we got continuing process improvement. But when we talk about the people part of it, each generation is different. They grew
Mhm.
up as a whole experiencing the world in a different way.
Mhm.
So if you keep trying to fit them in places they don't get, or you can't connect with them, one of the worst things that can happen is that you say, I've been doing something for X number of years,
Yeah.
and at no point did you try to keep up to date with what do people think now, what do people do now,
Mhm.
right? I remember being at one of the big universities when it was, we're too good to have online courses. That's beneath us. And then a paper came out, like there was big debates among all the department heads, and the paper came out saying how many billions of dollars a certain online university made. That next semester we had online classes because money said,
Yeah.
go get you some online classes and create that content. It all of the debate, and even those people who was fiercely saying, you were there, Mr. Ivy League, because right, that was during that time where we're Ivy League, we're too good for that. When they see how many billions of dollars they were losing, not a word, not a syllable from a single naysayer, because they hadn't understood that the world had moved forward, right? So in places I've taught, and they were like, well, looking at, we've used all these different products, and there's a couple of in that online classroom classroom space, and one of them, has board in the name. Everybody's used that, and I was saying, yeah, but this is old. No, this is old because I need to be able to take that same class, and they need to be able to look at it on their cell phone while they're on the train and be able to do it. And sure enough, we wound up going with a product that could do all that. And then it wasn't long before that original product we moved away from went to that, saying, yeah, if the customer, if the student, if the learner, wherever they're at, right, if it's on their phone, micro learning is a thing now.
Yeah, that's right.
So while we looked and said, what should we be doing with things such as TikTok, what we didn't understand was whether it was good or bad or just trash information, it was still micro learning. So now that we understand that, we need to know how can we leverage that. So for example is uh, those mandatory classes that everyone has to do at work. Y'all know the ones.
CBTs,
Yeah, the
CBTs.
ones that talk about cybersecurity, et cetera, et cetera. If you could put those in small bursts so it didn't feel like a root canal with no painkiller, I'm sure we get higher rates of people participating, right? So just understanding both all people, processes, and tools, all of those things are moving forward at all times. And no matter how long you've been in a profession, you need to understand where we are today, the speed of now. Make sure that what you're giving and teaching and asking people to participate in is relevant for today. So,
So I want to hit on something you said, because that micro learning is a huge response now that leaders really, really need to say, I don't have the luxury of finding out how other companies in 5 years will have better employees than employees that I'm bringing up, right? For me to retire, so that way other people can take that position. Micro learning and this collaborative ecosystem, right? Micro learning means that you're always learning something and you're addressing that tutorial hell.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to hit on that real quick because tutorial hell is what happens when you go to an online course, and that online course, everything works just fine.
Mm-hmm.
We know because that lab that we do in those courses, the instruction is given right there. So you know how it works, and everything works. Tutorial hell, right? In
Mm-hmm.
tutorial, everything works. But it's that complexity in real world when the system is bought into your world, and all of a sudden other people are using it, things are breaking. So you're like, wait a second. The lab said this is how you set it up, but it never said how you troubleshoot it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you fix that anomaly of a problem that I wasn't trained on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tutorial hell means everything works in tutorial, but it doesn't work in real world. So
Right.
in micro learning, it's a different approach. In micro learning, what you're learning is not just same topic over and over. You're learning things about that topic that is not necessarily something you will search on YouTube,
Right.
right?
Right.
So that micro learning has to have another component of learning in a collaboration, right?
Mm-hmm.
Collaborative learning. What that does is that it changes your question or your prompt that you written on YouTube last week to
Mm-hmm.
something new, because in a group gathering, people are asking questions about that. All of a sudden, questions are changing. People are saying, look, I don't know anything about this product, but here's the question I have for that. So
Mm-hmm.
not because the question is not coming from your head, but somebody else's head, all of a sudden you're changing the way you're researching what it is that micro learning you're working on.
Right.
So now, not necessarily solving that troubleshooting, but guess what? That's what you're doing. You're learning from other people's need about that system, and then you're addressing that system as you go.
Right.
And if anybody wants to challenge me on this, I will accept your challenge. If you're not doing micro learning today and you're thinking 5 years from now, you have a group of guys that are just totally up to date on what's happening in the AI and data space, I'm challenging you. Meet me 5 years from now. We will talk.
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing micro learning, your team is not doing micro learning, specifically the community of practice, where they're not just doing tutorial hell. Every time they learn something, they actually meet in a people setup, be it Zoom call or a coffee break or whatever the case is, meet for 30, 40 minutes, specific intention on we're going to talk about some specific topic here, right? It doesn't have to be AI. And I think we'll show you some of those things on our YouTube on the screen. It doesn't have to be all about AI, but it can be based around AI or far from AI, however you want to do it. But it's just people coming together, figuring out the question, what to research next, how do you do micro learning, and how do you do it as a team, right?
Right.
Again, it's just something that I think we'll talk about, and that's what we're trying to set up to
Yeah.
educate people for. Is how
Well,
do you do learning?
how do you do it? And then also it's part of the mix, right? So you got the big picture, the little picture, and everything in between.
Mhm.
So basic concepts. So let's say I'm trying to grow leaders in my organization.
Yeah,
Certain concepts I want to deliver through micro learning so that they can start to scaffold and put the pieces together.
yeah,
But when it comes time to validate, the old things where it'll ask you a question, you give an answer, it was very static, right or wrong.
yeah, yeah.
Well, the new stuff is dynamic animation where it runs you through a scenario. Joe is late for the fourth time this week. You know, what should you do? And then you say what you would do, and it keeps track of each person individually because now we know, being experienced leaders, he's late for the fourth time this week. Your real question to Joe is, are you okay, Joe?
All right.
Right? As a leader, you want to make sure Joe's okay.
Yeah.
Because if Joe don't feel safe letting you know something terrible's going on in his life, human factors, are you a good leader? Probably not. But you don't tell people the answer. You let them answer it, and then you lead them. So a lot of the now AI based, I'm sorry, AI supported technologies when it comes to the human domain, there is no right or wrong answer. It is an answer, a better answer, and best answer, right? Because your objective is not to hit them on the hand, wrong answer. You're trying to build a leader, right? And in the real world, if you were trying to build a leader, when a mistake is made, I never be like, this is wrong. I would just say, I don't think that was the best solution. Walk me through it and tell me how we got here. And then they walk me through it and I listen, even though I might know the problem up front. I listen because they need to know that I'm going to hear what they have to say. And I say, okay. And then instead of saying what you should have did was, that never goes over well. Not at work, not in your friendships, not in your marriage. That never
You
goes
even
over
tried that with your kids yet? You even tried that with
right,
your kids?
right. Oh, definitely not with them kids. I'm here to tell you because they will rebel. But to say, okay, I understand how you got here. Do you mind if I share something with you? And then you share with them what was a better alternative.
Right.
That will stick far more, right? And really have a much better outcome because now they're not feeling a certain way that isn't great, right? Because when you say things that damage or upset people, it comes out somewhere. You walk away, and then they go to the person next low on the lower on the food chain. What are you looking at? So, what you want to do is put all those pieces together, and with all of the team, all of your team members, AI should really over time start to shape what areas that you may need work. So now we're talking to HR and to say, HR, tell us what kind of training we need. And then now to give you a one shot, one kill, they'll say, well, 40% of our people need help in whatever that domain is, right? Or that subdomain. And in particular, and through that analysis, it may be part their training, but it also could be part our failure as senior leaders. And now HR has the data to say, I know you thought you were communicating XYZ in our messaging, but look at what's being received. Maybe we need to try a different approach.
Yes.
So when you're talking about artificial intelligence and what it can do, it's not about the bits and the bytes. It's about how do we make our places and spaces better, right? But listen, the guru is right there. Grace is right there.
Teach us.
I'm listening, I'm learning, and I'm hearing. So
Yeah.
what I'm really hearing from you is tech and AI adjustments and adoption are not a really tech problem. They are a human problem, and they are people problems. So it's up to leaders to empower their people and teach them and guide them and expose them to the necessary material to have a
Right.
understanding and how to use it. And I think from HR perspective, we have to embrace the learning culture within
Mhm.
our organization. I think I'm not going to name the company, but and I mentioned that at our table talk once, because I just recently, right before we had our table talk with Trailblazers, I met this gentleman who worked at our company, and he said, we are working on this right now, and it's going to replace a lot of jobs within the organization. And I believe he actually threw out a number in the thousands. And this is a huge company. So if he said that to me, now I'm going to tell these people that work there, hey, they're building something and they're about to replace your job.
Mhm.
And now there's panic within that organization because that one person is going to tell 20 other at least, right?
Mhm.
But if there's transparency and kind of like culture of learning, this is going to be new. This is what's happening. This is, kind of like guide them through the changes and help them like, hey, you can adapt to this through this. And we have these type of training and products in our for you to explore and to use to learn, right? So we're creating the culture, and I'm just naming a few things here. There are many ways of doing that,
Mhm.
and I know you guys are teaching in many different aspects with organizations to help them do specifically that. And I think just looking at some of the HR conversations that I see in different like platforms, there is still a lot of work to be done, in my opinion, to open our minds up to embracing learning culture within our organization. Sometimes we have to be the ones pushing back on leadership to let them know, because they don't know what they don't know,
That's right.
right? And they have not seen any problems, so they don't see anything to fix.
Right.
So we
Right.
have to push back and say, like, look, this is happening, and we need to create something that helps them learn, that helps them, be prepared for adoption and for adjustments on different things. And, not each department has the same problem. That's
Right.
another thing, right? Like, HR has totally different things to adapt to than finance,
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
let me stop it right there, because I could go on and on and on.
No, but you're so right about understanding um, the various parts of an organization, right? The heart is wonderful, but it don't do what the lungs do, and the lungs do not do what the kidney does, right? So people need to understand holistically in their organization. There isn't a one shot kind of that cures all ailments. It's always about managing the organization. A lot of people in a lot of fields, when they hear that their job is going away, well, the truth is, what is it transforming into? And
Mm.
how can I leverage my past experience to be
That's right.
relevant in the new situation, right?
That's
Yeah,
right, exactly. Yes.
yeah. I had a lot of people in my military unit working the equal opportunity program, and how it's changed and changing because of both executive orders and just where the business was going of treating people well anyway, right? Because most of the time it's not about any of the big protected classes that people thought it was about. Most of the complaints that I get, they're really about humans not treating other humans well. You hurt me, and I need a way to get your attention. And
Mhm.
so 90% of my cases don't ever go formal. They are informal, and through mediation, we have conversations. And, I was like, did you mean to say it that way? Did you know it would have that impact? Was because you disagree with someone, was your intent to then damage them in a way that was lasting? Was that who you wanted to be? Clarifying questions, right? And I find that with companies, um, now we got to ask the right questions. We also need to understand, as that EO field changes, it's not about the things it used to be about. We're now looking for data scientists, right, to do the analysis of the surveys. We're looking for people with organizational management background, human behavior background, right? So if it's all done right and managed well over time, you manage a workforce to be productive and really fruitful and treat each other well without them feeling it in one particular way or another. It just becomes part of the culture. So when people hear culture, they think it's a simple thing. There are so many factors that go into it. So
Ecosystem.
yes, it's a whole ecosystem, and looking for where you fit in that ecosystem. So if you're not on the front end anymore, okay, I'm not on the front end. I'm not on the people end. I'm uh, a finance person, and they don't want my reports anymore. AI does it. I'm a human resources person, and they don't want me to do onboarding anymore. Okay, but you have all this knowledge, the skills, and the ability. Where do you now repurpose that
Yeah.
and expand it? There is opportunity. You just have to go look for it. So
So it's a conversation that we can have over dinner,
yeah.
right? This is a conversation we can have over the dinner, and it kind of ties back to the leaders, right? Because your ability to make a decision, previously you would have decision making that would say 6 months long or 3 months long, or at least you can put a timeline on it to say this is a decision we're going to make, right? And then things will happen and things are going to move forward, right? So let's say, for example, you're running a factory, you know when to get the loans so that way you can buy things and put things together and then sell them, and then everything works. Decision making, right, throughout the day. But now, because of this AI space, a single decision has to evolve into another decision, has to mold into this decision. So those big decisions that we used to make as leaders, of manufacturing shop floor, flight line, or any space you can talk about people, process, and tool, is people's the process has to be in a way that decision makers are relying on everybody else's decision making capability, because it's very fluid. I make one decision, but I'm not the one that's pulling the trigger and everything happens, right? It's like if I make the decision, everybody in the chain has to have some understanding of what their decision responsibility is and how they make those decisions. And those decisions are really evolving continuously with feedback, right? So, hey, I make a decision, AI is there, AI is in the process, AI is going to say, yeah, I tried that, but it didn't work. Well, if it came back, who do I go back to and say, can you ask AI how to do it differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an exact example of that, which is you mentioned earlier, 1,000 people leave a job, right? Well, out of 1,000 people, I bet just the scenario wise, there's 999 problems that AI doesn't even know exist.
Exactly.
Right. So those 1,000 people leaves and 999 people, you're thinking, well, there's 999 problem. Are they all going to show up at once?
Mm-hmm.
They're not.
They're
Right.
not.
So there's subject matter expertise that is in that pipeline of the process. They'll have to come in. And this is where we're going with digital twin, is that what we are accustomed to today, which is that financial report, dashboard, and all that, we're going to talk about digital twin. Because that digital twin, if you don't know anything about it, you want to learn about it, that's what we will teach you, right, in a micro learning. Because this digital twin is bigger than AI, I would say. This is because that people, process, and tool that you hear about is that during a simulation, Bobby mentioned the simulation earlier, you can have a simulation, but that simulation is only good for one problem out of 999 problems. One person seeing and understanding it, they will say simulation runs just fine. Go ahead and run that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can do multiple of these until 999 shows up. Okay, well, now we fixed all 999, right? It takes some time, but you're really living off of other people's decision-making capability. So if you're a leader, you're going to have to start relying on other people's expertise and roll that expertise over to as many people and then give them AIs to do those expertise work, right?
Right.
So the goal is to have more human in the loop and not less.
Right.
Because that is the part of decision making that I help a lot of decision makers with, is to say, use your emotional intelligence, not your artificial intelligence.
Yeah, we recently had a terrible incident in the AI community, right, with the school that was using the AI software, and the young man had a bag of Fritos or Doritos, one or the other, and the AI thought it was a weapon. Police come, weapons drawn, and as someone in this profession, I was like, so the system flags and the image and the zoom in on the threat doesn't happen. You haven't coordinated with the police to say, once we get it, here's the thing. We hit the ground ready to go, but we need to verify the threat. Human things that didn't have anything to do with AI. Yeah, the AI had a problem.
Yeah.
But you went to these teenagers and their friends, weapons drawn, thinking they had a gun. And depending on the day, you could have killed one of those kids.
No.
So in the process, do we blame AI? That's just one piece of it. Expect there to be problems and errors, right?
Expect there to be problems
Expect
because you're,
that,
yeah.
right? So then my question would be, again, whatever image that it used to gather that or make that assessment should have been made available in real time to everyone that's in the decision making process. Should have been able to say, hey, a gun isn't simply yellow and red, right?
Right.
So, or what are they doing? There isn't threatening actions, or they don't. There's so many other things that if you just would have had a human in the loop with their experience, could have said, I don't think that's what that is. Yes, we go to investigate, but we don't go weapons out around a bunch of kids when we haven't confirmed. So you let the software make the full and the DoD, we used to call it the kill chain. And unfortunately, in this case, had that went wrong, it would have been the KILL chain, right?
Yeah. And Grace, I want to hear from you as well on this, but just to kind of finish that thought about what we were going to talk next is digital twin. We're going to talk about Pawn the AI and business impact analysis of AI. And we want to teach three of these topics to interested individuals. So we're looking to find people to come and join and see the benefit of microlearning, but microlearning without living through tutorial hell, where you're not just learning, but you're also communicating with a group of people on a continuous basis, preferably every week. And if you're not able to do that every week, all we need is for you to make a video and, just make a video and just, show us what it is that you're learning through microlearning. So that way other people can learn from you and generate their question off of your learning, right? So Grace, off to you, the mic is to you, but one of the things that I want to show next is those track and some of the things on YouTube that people can see, and what are we going to do next from it,
Yeah. I think it's becoming more and more clear the more AI tools that are out there, just from the user perspective alone, not even like on a big stage such as organizations and businesses, but just like kind of regular household user, that the judgment is on us. It doesn't make judgments on our behalf. We have to make the judgments. Well, it does. But what I'm saying is we have to take the wheels on making judgments, the final judgments anyways, on things, in decisions, right? And I think it's a very interesting topic that you, or example that you actually talked about, and that could have went really south, and thank God it didn't. But even from the human perspective, where we think it's going to take over and over and over, and a lot of I also do career coaching. When I speak to job seekers that use these tools, that tool does not know you.
Right.
You still have to make the judgment as to what content you want in there, if that content speaks to who you are and what you really have done, and can you speak to that when you are in front of these interviews, right? So anyways, I look forward to kind of getting to the next clip, Asif, and kind of talk about that.
So we're gonna review these. The first we'll talk about the business impact analysis, right? So let me share my screen here. Are you guys able to see my screen? Yeah, you guys are seeing it. Good. So this channel specifically, I just put that out there, right? Just as an example. There's probably hundreds and hundreds of these channels that you can go to and learn AI from. But let's say, for example, you are interested in business impact analysis, right? How do you learn business impact analysis of AI without knowing how AI works, right? So one of the things you have to know about AI is that you have to manage your expectation about AI, right? That means that you have to know the limitations of AI, right? Why things works, why things doesn't work. What does it mean garbage in, garbage out? What does it mean data? What does it mean software? What does it mean hardware, right? Now, are you going to become a subject matter expert of anything software or hardware? No. But you're going to be able to put borders around how to manage this expectation about AI, right? So when it fails, you're not disappointed. You're more of like in a prep mode to say, now we have to do something because I know the steps in the back of my head, right? That's how much of AI information I actually have. So that's one, right? That's that business impact analysis. So this business impact analysis cohort, what we're looking for is mixture of non-techies and techies. We would rather have very few techies, because of techies, they can learn and they can ask questions. But what we're trying to do is get more of the non-techie questions, right? Because these non-techie questions will help other non-techies learn faster. Because when in the tech space we talk, we use certain acronyms, and these acronyms does not jive well with the non-techies, right? Because non-techies are like, there's way too many terminologies that I'm not familiar with. So here we are not necessarily learning about tech and then discouraged and we stop, right? So microlearning, do the microlearning, learn wherever you learn through research, however you research, do your own training, but come in every week and talk to us. Right? Talk to us, communicate to us that this is what you're researching and this is what you're finding, and this is how you think it works. Now bounce that idea of thinking, is that how it works? Right? So business impact analysis, understand what the cost justification looks like. How do you make a AI tool personalizable that's good for your organization and not necessarily good for everybody that's trying to steal that AI from you, right? So which takes me into the security side of AI, which is another cohort that we're setting up. And if I can get my switches correct, I'll be able to share the screen with you and talk about cybersecurity side of things. Again, there's so many of these channels out there, but I'm just using this one as an example because this is the Pawn the AI channel, right? Pawn the AI. So just to give you a kind of quick background, again, lots of terminologies, right? In tech space, don't let that be intimidating, right? Because when you come to this community after you go through micro learning, you come to this community, and then in this community, you talk about this sort of things. You can ask direct questions and get answers and clarity and so on and so forth. So the reason it's called pawn is that because you're attacking somebody's IT system and taking it over, right? So what that means is that I own you now. So it's just a terminology like pawn, I pawned it, right? It's kind of like, kids' word, pawn to own kind of a thing. So you have lots of these cybersecurity channels that you can look at and say, yeah, I can learn a few things here, but not necessarily I'm going to understand everything, right? But as a non-techie, if I give you a baseline understanding for first few weeks, all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I'm researching it for this person, this specific reason. So it's personalized to me. So when I go to YouTube, I know what video I'm looking at, what video applies to me and what video doesn't apply to me. Because of course there's billions of these videos on YouTube, right? And anywhere you go, you can always say like, well, I'm a specialist in law, so I'm going to look for legal side of things. What happens after somebody gets attacked by a teenager that's trying to learn how to attack people on the internet, right? So now I have to think about that. Now I'm learning about that legal aspects of it. So if you're a legal guy, you're on a law side of things, and you're thinking like, I will never learn tech. Well, here's an opportunity to just try that out and see how that works for you, right? And we're very interested in learning for ourselves how the non-techies are learning. So let me pause on this YouTube things because I kind of want to emphasize the fact that this is not our first time teaching non-techies, right? This is the part where we are very courageous about reaching out to the non-techies and asking them, come and join us, right? Because we've taught non-techies, and what they said first, which was that, I only know monitors and keyboard, and everything else I have no idea how it works, right? These are of a specific age group, by the way. Like I'm talking about somebody who left military after they got in 18. So they're about 22, 23 years old, right? Have no idea about tech. And when they said that, I said, well, challenge accepted, what it is that you're going to learn. And that person literally talked about digital twin within a month and a half in front of an audience of, streaming live, talking about digital twin and how that digital twin and the gaming has a lot of things in connections, and is able to articulate the fact that he knows enough about digital twin and not to get it confused with something like, oh, there's this twin of me somewhere out in the world, right? So there's a positivity in teaching the non-techies. And once we did it through micro-learning. We did it through micro-learning and meeting every week and going over what it is that we're learning, right? So that human element at the end was the most powerful one, because now you're working towards a presentation, let's say, right? Or working towards the goal of, if I can speak on a topic for the next 10 minutes that I just learned over micro-learning for the last 10 weeks, right? It's a goal that is well worth having, right? Because now you're able to communicate. You're able to communicate about a topic that 10 weeks ago, you weren't able to communicate, right? Now you can. So that's the kind of power of micro-learning. And again, tutorial hell, right? Don't get stuck on just learning these things on YouTube. Come and join a community of practice like ours, where you can come in, learn how to teach the teachers. You can learn about business impact analysis. You can do communication engagement just specifically on AI. And then if you have a specific part of IT system that you want to learn, we can walk you through there as well, because that's all it takes. It just gives you a rope. Now you can go fish. You know what I mean? And then I'm going to show the last part of it, which is stop screen sharing. I feel like I'm in cage or caveman days where I have to do manual selection of screen sharing. No, I'm picking up this one. Okay, so I picked this one specifically because this is something that unless you type in, it's not going to pop up, right? So digital twin Bentley, right? So you won't know about Bentley system just because you're looking up digital twin, but these are the guys that are one of the original software makers of digital twin, right? So let me explain digital twin real quick to somebody who has never heard of the term digital twin. So anything that is physical that you know physically exists, now you can make a digital version of that, right? So the Earth is a physical object. The whole Earth is a physical object. And NVIDIA has an open source project where that project has created the whole digital twin of the Earth, right? Or at least working on it because it's a massive project. So you can imagine anything that is a physical object, you can make a digital version of that. And that's digital twin. But that's not where it stops, right? Like if it looks like a sieve, talks like a sieve, it's not probably a digital twin of a sieve, right? It's probably as a deep fake. So a lot of people get deep fake and digital twin confused, but all in all, they're all intertwined, right? They're not necessarily separated, but as a digital twin is a broader umbrella that's even bigger umbrella than AI. And I say that because if you use AI correctly, if you can do machine learning correctly, everything you need can have a digital version of it somewhere out in the internet or somewhere in the data servers, right? So the softwares are very powerful. So I pulled this company up to show that, digital twin, there's lots of companies that does digital twin, and you can imagine who does digital twin at this age in 2025. But a lot of the companies that have been doing it, they've been perfecting it for specific reasons. So you can have a specific purpose of digital twin, or you can just learn the whole thing about digital twin like you just want to be able to communicate about it, right? You don't have to build a digital twin to join our cohort. You don't have to be able to say, at the end of the 10 weeks, I'm going to do something digital twin that's crazy, right? I'm not. I'm just going to do digital twin for this purposes, so that way I can feel comfortable about learning about AI, how AI works, and what are some of the things that AI enables in digital twin space, right? So I think I skipped the part about cybersecurity, but I'll come back to that. I want to hear your thoughts and feedback on that micro learning and learning through a community in a small segments. What do you guys think?
I compare this to learning languages.
Mm.
And I tell you why. When you were talking about you can learn it on YouTube, but when you come into the community and start speaking the language, that's when you really retain it. Right. I know a lot of folks who, come to me like, well, I took this, I speak German. So that's, what a lot of times that's what they tell me. It's like, oh, I took German and and then, however, I forgot. Right. And even though they can potentially hear some of the stuff that I say, they cannot put it together, or they don't, they cannot speak it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Right. And I think if you get the confidence to speak about it, number one. Number two, you are around the folks that speak that language. You are in their country, right? So you start now communicating, understanding as they communicate among them, and then you start communicating with them. That's right. And all of a sudden you're in the conversation.
Yeah, the brain is wiring in the right direction.
Yeah. And the other thing that I really kept on hearing from myself, that's my brain talking to me. It's like, no stupid question is no question is a stupid question. I really have to remind myself that sometimes, because it's intimidating. You know what I mean? Somebody always knows more than you do. Yeah. And somebody is always like way more enlightened and educated on some things that you are not. Yeah. And to be in that room, that's right. It's hard to ask questions because, you go automatically mute because you don't want to sound stupid,
Well, that's one of the challenges that we have for our micro learning and then doing this engagement, is that in order for you to keep coming back, we'll give you a few chances, But if you're off mute, if you're not off mute and you're not communicating, you're not serving any purpose to anybody, right? You can be a fly on a wall to a certain point, right? But you have to be able to ask questions, throw your comments in, and say, I don't have any questions, but if I have to ask a question, how would I ask that question? Can somebody help me with that, right? Because you can say, like, say for example, everybody goes to sleep, right? But can somebody explain what dream is? And that's no stupid question, right? So, but let's look at legitimate questions that if you don't ask, now if you dream every day, what's happening? Like, can you ask a question about dream? So if somebody doesn't know anything about dream and you ask them about dream, you have to know how to ask that question, because you have to paraphrase that ability to say, I have to communicate that question too. Question is part of communication, right? So as we're communicating, as we're going back and forth, we have to be able to get better at asking questions. Can somebody help me ask those better questions? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just saying, and is it as black and white as it's just being a dream is a dream? Is it, some people say it's spiritual, some people say this and that, and I'm just using that as an example, but not every answer to any AI or technology is sometimes also black and white, especially, if it's consumer or business related.
Yeah, and I won't go into the cybersecurity. All right, Bobby. So we have some things that we're going to talk more about next week, but we do have to jump off because of an emergency. So let's continue on our next conversation, but we will talk more about this, and there's more coming, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And Grace, I love your example about speaking a language, right? Because you can know the fundamentals, but putting it out in the real world. I speak several languages very well if I've had a drink.
I was like, oh, really?
But the longer you're away from it, and the longer you don't have just regular routine conversation, the more it becomes foreign to you, right? So, true thing about language. So did Asif tell you when it was time to go to get his advanced degree, and he decided, he was like, I don't know if I can go to an Ivy League school. Not only did he go to Ivy League, I swear within a month he picked up a British accent. I'm just saying. Right.
You should talk to my daughter then. She
Right. You're like, who's this talking?
Whole personality, right? But yeah, I appreciate both of you guys. We got to call it a night tonight, and I'm looking forward to just seeing how many people will join this cohort. Now we have about 17, so I think we need about 4 more just to make it even between 3 different cohort, right? Yeah. But have a good night, and see you guys next time.
Pleasure.
Good one. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Ciao.
Created my own little algorithms to do one thing or that.